Welcome back inside Studio K. Paul Severino and Al Leiter. We're going to talk pitching in a way and just how magical a perfect game is, right? And that's tremendous. But it's also memorable when the guys come so close. And for more on that, author, watch out for the desk there, Paul. Author Joe Cox joins us right now, the author of Almost Perfect, The Heartbreaking Pursuit of Pitching's Holy Grail. This book came out yesterday, Joe. We appreciate the time. Why did you decide to write a book about the near miss, essentially?
Well, I guess it starts in my college dorm room when I watched Musina in 2001. Get to the 27th batter, get to the last strike, and Carl Everett dumps a base hit, and I thought, you can't pitch any better than that. It's just not possible. And from there, I read a book or two about the perfect games, but I always went back to the guys who just missed and thought there'd be a story worth telling.
I was actually at that Mike Musina game.
You were?
In the right field bleachers, yeah.
Really?
First game at Fenway Park, too.
Up at Fenway?
Yeah, a freshman in college.
But look at that, Joe. You didn't know that.
Enough about me. No, this was heartbreaking. And that's the thing, Joe, as I'm sure that you've learned in writing this book, is that in a game like that, right, it's Yankees-Red Sox at Fenway Park in September. At the beginning of the game, it's split down the middle. Yankee fans on one side, Red Sox fans on the other. But as these perfect games evolve, 6th, 7th, 8th innings, everybody seems to move toward the pitcher's team to be in the ballpark for such a magical moment.
Absolutely. The history of the moment eclipses your rooting interest. Brian Holman, he pitched his in Oakland, and he said one of the coolest things about it was coming out for the 9th inning in Oakland as a Seattle Mariner and having 40,000 people give you a standing ovation. That's when you know you're really doing something.
That was Harold Reynolds. We just showed the video. Harold Reynolds. Look at that.
Mm-hmm. Oh. Holman, they break it up with a home run?
Yeah. Ken Phelps hits a gopher ball, and to make it worse, he comes back and then strikes out Ricky Henderson to end his one-hit, one-run game.
So, Joe, of all the near misses, one that comes to mind is Armando Galarraga. It's got to be number one for me. But of all your research doing the book, what were some of the most heartbreaking?
Well, the Galarraga one is kind of unique in that the umpire, of course, Jim Joyce, has a big role in it. But that honestly wasn't even the first time that happened. It was funny, the first of these near-perfect games, 1908, Hooks Wiltse in the New York Giants. Hooks is down to the last strike. He throws a 1-2 pitch that everybody in the ballpark agrees is gorgeous, is strike 3, and the umpire just double clutches on it and says it's ball 2, and on the next pitch he hits the opposing pitcher in the stomach. No more perfect game. But the funny thing about that, no controversy there. Wiltse recalled that later in life, whenever he bumped into the umpire, he always tried to give him a cigar. That was his way of making things right.
Joe, what's the structure of this book? Is it individual stories? Is it one continuous story weaved in throughout? Is it a ranking system? What's the structure?
No, it's individual stories, and I went chronologically. From Wiltse in 1908 to Max Scherzer in 2015. Just tried to tell the story of every game, every pitcher. And in the course of doing that, some of the big backstories of baseball happened to come through really well chronologically.
And is it mostly, Joe, and I think I know the answer, but I'm curious of your opinion, is that the unique aspect of baseball, how literally the way the ball bounces could be the difference between a hit or not, or an error or not. When you look into these near misses of literally a last out, a 26th out kind of scenario, did it come down to some of those? Was it really a matter of luck?
Oh, it very much is a matter of luck. And guys hit little bloopers that fall a foot in front of an outfielder. Again, a couple of times, strike 2 pitches that could have been strike 3 weren't strike 3. And perfection is so hard to reach in baseball. It's hard to reach in anything, but it's especially hard to reach in baseball, which is kind of by its nature a game of failure. To get that close alone is amazing, but then to get that close and have the last break go against you, I think is an interesting situation.
We're not far removed from the Hall of Fame announcement, right? And this is the same time of year that we always say, let's not forget that it's a Hall of Fame and museum. If you throw a perfect game, you end up in the museum portion of it. But if these guys that missed out on throwing a perfect game, how might that affect them getting into the Hall of Fame part of Cooperstown?
Well, it was an interesting thing to talk about because a lot of these guys were really successful pitchers. I mean, there are a few journeymen in the list. But you start going through, and you've got Pedro Martinez, who's in now, but you've got Mike Mussina, who I think we all expect to be in the not-distant future. And then some guys like Billy Pierce, Tommy Bridges, Milt Pappas, who are a little more shaky. And honestly, writing this book kind of changed my perspective. I was a tough, only the best of the best in the Hall of Fame kind of guy. And I talked to Milt Pappas, and he said, I don't hold out any hope for the Hall of Fame. But then he proceeded to make his case for me, God rest his soul. And it was just kind of a defining moment to me that with all the success these guys have, that really is the cherry on the sundae for everybody. And now I'm kind of a guy who, if you can make a case for a guy with a straight face, I kind of support it.
Hey, Joe, Jim Bunning, who threw a perfect game against the Mets while with the Phillies, he wrote your foreword. What'd you learn from talking to Jim, and how was his contribution to your book?
Again, kind of how much luck really is involved, how it can easily go one way or the other way. The interesting thing with Jim, I didn't realize until I started talking with him, Jim Bunning pitched a lot of innings in the minor leagues, and for a guy who's a Hall of Famer, that's incredibly rare. There was some pressure on Jim Bunning after a couple of years in the minors to give up this baseball business and go get a real job. And he stuck with it and obviously did pretty well, and then got a pretty good real job as a secondary thing.
Yeah, that senator thing.
Yeah, that whole second career. Yes, absolutely. Joe, we appreciate the time. We are sure to check this out again. It came out yesterday, Almost Perfect, The Heartbreaking Pursuit of Pitching's Holy Grail. Joe Cox, thanks for the time. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you, gentlemen. Enjoyed it.